give me the technical justification. Don't give me your recommendations, give me the scientific technical basis for those recommendations. And so I appreciate you all pitching in and providing that the sound scientific basis, and I think a good policy, not obviously perfect, but a good policy upon which to begin this effort. I will move for adoption of the policy. I will make one response to a commenter who said today that if we believe that this policy would have no impact, then we can go ahead and vote yes. My response is I'm voting yes not because I believe the policy will have no impact, but I believe it will have positive impact on water quality, in that it will allow us to direct and focus our resources on the greater threat, the greater risks, the sites that pose the higher risk to groundwater quality in our states. And so for that reason, again, I move for adoption of the policy.
Thank you, Tam. Fran, you have a comment?
I will second, and I too want to thank staff and Tam and Vicki. I think between Vicki and Tam, we had to get a good policy. They spent a lot of time making this happen, and I'm glad Tam made the comment that she did right at the end, because in fact that is the point here. It is not this is, as I mentioned before, it's not a money saver. It is where we want to make sure that we're spending our money cleaning up the sites that are of greatest that have the most negative effect on the public, and so that's what we're doing. In terms of the Administrative Procedures Act, we'll know soon enough. People were, particularly two people who are fairly new to our process, were concerned about the Administrative Procedures Act, but I think we have a long history of practicing that when there is a major change, we do allow extra time. When there are, when we are responding to comments, we don't. So I too, not only did I have to catch up really fast with the Friday posting, but I was at the Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and so my mornings and evenings were focused on underground storage tanks, which was a little odd. But so that on that, I think I feel quite comfortable. On the CEQA challenge, I want to confirm with Michael Laufer, who's going to be the one who will have to deal with what I think is an inevitable CEQA challenge here, that he is comfortable with Lori's explanation, and because I don't think I've heard anything that would cause me to change my vote on that issue, but I'd want to be sure.
Thank you, Member Spivey-Weber. Ms. Brock and I worked very closely in terms of looking at the most recent case that was cited, the Smart Rail case, and continue to believe that the cases, and it's not just the Communities for a Better Environment South Coast Air Quality Management District case, but the other cases cited in the substitute environmental document, demonstrate that in normal circumstances, and we really feel this falls within that realm, the existing physical environment is the appropriate baseline that should be used. And this particular case, and even the most recent case, underscores that there's discretion that the agency has in selecting that. We don't see any reason to deviate from the norm, and as you've heard over the course of the hearings and the discussion of this policy over the last couple of years, we already have a process that's only semi-functional with respect to the petition process, and this is really an attempt to animate those existing closure policies that flow from Resolution 9249, and that in and of itself doesn't demonstrate to me any reason to deviate from the normal condition of the physical existing environment is the baseline to use. And so I completely agree with what Ms. Brock told you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And I would like to concur with the comments of my colleagues, one in particular from Fran. In these budget times, we're always looking for ways to shave off dollars, if you will. This proposal has nothing to do with shaving off dollars. As Fran well articulated, and Tam certainly well understands, it was our intention to use the resources we've got in the most efficient manner and to deal with the most threatening issues is related to underground tanks with the dollars we have. And to say that this is perfect, Mr. Hurd, to your comment, we can't say that there isn't going to be some negative environmental impact here. I agree with the fact that there's going to be an awful lot more positives than negatives if we dealt in a strident way with anything that has to do with negative environmental water quality impacts in the state of California. We'd probably have to outlaw people. And so, we understand what you're saying. We're not indifferent to it. We're trying to manage this in the most proactive way that we can, in the most environmentally responsible way we can. With that, I will call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Actually, before you conclude this item, if I could make one comment or a suggestion to Mr. Howard, now that the board has unanimously adopted this policy. It's on. The green light is on. Have you turned me off? Well, as long as Tom can hear me, I'll get closer. I don't want this to be a policy that sits on the shelf, and so I'm asking our executive director to start putting together an implementation plan on how to move forward in terms of applying this policy through our 5-year review process, through the petitions that we already have in-house, and through some other expedited process to close the low-threat sites out there with the appropriate appeals process that we've provided for in the policy. And I would like a report back from you, either through your executive officer director's report or an informational item to the board, say within 6 months, on your progress on implementation.
Yes, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe Ms. Whitney, in fact, I know Ms. Whitney, has some tokens of our appreciation for all the cooperation we received on this project. Vicki, if you would take over, please.
Sure, thank you. When I was tasked with putting together the stakeholder group, I was also given a pretty short deadline. I think it was 4 months from the time that we decided that we were going to go forward with a stakeholder group to help develop this policy. And I did sort of beat them into submission, I have to admit. We set a schedule the first day, and I wouldn't let them deviate from that schedule. But I want to express my appreciation to the stakeholders. There are a number of them here today. Some of them couldn't attend today. When the stakeholders presented the policy that they had developed to you in an information item about, I think it was about 9 months ago, it happened to be at the same board meeting where the board had acknowledged the stakeholders who had worked on the recycled water policy, and they said, hey, what about us? And so I promised them that I would make sure that they were all acknowledged, and I always try to meet my commitments. And so we've got some certificates of appreciation that we'd like to give to the ones who are here. So I'm going to mention the names of the stakeholder group, and for those who are here, if you would come up, I would very much appreciate it. And I also want to acknowledge that after that 4-month period was over, we had the draft of a policy done, but there was a lot of work putting together the technical information to support that draft that continued for several months, and some of these guys really went above and beyond to help us, the staff, pull those justification documents together and make them go from a C- to a B+, A-. And I also want to acknowledge Kevin and Lori and Kevin's staff, who are sitting in the second row here, who worked very hard on getting this policy done and the substitute document. So thanks. Dave Arietta, Jay McKeeman. The next one's going to be a challenge for me. Ravi Arulanthanam. Did I say it right, Ravi? I just call him Ravi because his last name has too many syllables. Roy Herndon, David Noren, Kurt Berchtold, Barry Marcus, Stephanie Shakovsky. Stephanie sent an email earlier saying that she was stuck in Mayday traffic in the Bay Area and wasn't going to be here on time, and Marcus Niebank. So if you guys could come over here, these are the group of people who, like I said, put in you know, significant hours beyond the hours where they were meeting with Tam and I to do a lot of the research and the literature review and bring information forward to us. And I really want to appreciate, I really appreciate it, and I wanted to express that to them and make sure that you all knew that too.
Want to take a picture? Yeah. Come on over.
In the staff.
Oh, and Kevin and
Kevin, heck all of your staff come on.
hey, good job.
Thank you.
Robbie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also want to say these guys really actually were a pleasure to work with. And now I'm doing it with the stormwater permits, so.
They might
I
not be
hope
as
they're
much of a
just as
pleasure.
pleasurable.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. You have a wide-angle lens there, Karen, or what?
Shorter people in front.
We have a straggler that we do want to get in. One more person. Before you take that, Karen? Yeah? We want to wait for George. He's moving a little slow today. But he's going to make it.
Kevin, we might want to mention Ben Wright is not here today.
Ben Wright is not here.
You want to introduce your staff?
Take one more.
I'm not used to that. Her iPad, it doesn't flash.
Charlo has just joined us. George Lockwood.
Steve McMaster's just sat down.
Still get my bell and how to find out. Mr. Loffer, from a procedural standpoint, we are going to go into a public hearing. Do we adjourn, or do we do it all at once?
Actually, the follow-on hearing that we have now is part of the board meeting, so
Okay.
we'll have to adjourn the meeting after the hearing.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a, pardon me, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll resume at quarter after with our public hearing. Thank you.
Phil took the flight up with me this morning from Kelly County San. I said, I think you can start by 11. So I want you to know that this individual card you gave me was in my list over here. Somehow it got misfiled.
I didn't want, I mean, sometimes I tease you publicly, but I didn't want to say, Janine, you really screwed up.
Oh, you could have, you know, I would have
Yeah,
said.
I'm sensitive.
Oh,
Have you noticed?
when did that happen?
Oh, the last day, I think.
Oh, okay. Last hour?
Yeah, I have. Totally sensitive. I'm glad to see the roses are growing again, Bob. You know, you fly to New Orleans, that airstrip looks like something that should be in Guam or someplace. I mean, that is not the most comforting airstrip I've ever imagined.
And, you know, it's just, it's a doomed area. Just a doomed. That's one reason we go, because, I mean, the music comes out of that area. It's so
You know, when I've been there, you know, I'm getting older and I, you know, much as how much I can drink, but, you know, you think about everything that goes on. Some of these people walk their life, that's where they live. I don't know how they live through that.
Well, I think they die early. I really do. I don't think they live long.
Do you realize on those, have you seen the cemetery there? They have those, and they're above ground. And when one of them
clears off, then you put somebody else on it.
It's, this is our third year to go. This is the first year that we actually, even after dinner, we would go out club scene. There's a strip that has a
Were
bunch
there
of
others,
clubs.
just you and Michael, or did you there with you?
His sister joined us. She lives in New York, and so she came, and so the three of us. And the first year we went, Mary Nichols always teach. This is her 8th year to go. She's going this next weekend. But then we couldn't. We just. This was a 3-day weekend. This next weekend. It was 4 days. We just couldn't. But it was the club scene. That's where you get a lot of people. And just there was one group that was kind of pyramid groups, and they no panorama group, and they were doing what they call gypsy jazz, and it had kind of an Eastern European sound to it, kind of a gypsy sound, but it was definitely jazz.
Same instrument?
Yeah, they had trumpet, sousaphone, and clarinet, and sax, and bass. And then from the audience, a young guy came up, and he had his clarinet in his little case, and he asked if he could play with them. I think he just.
He wasn't a ringer, or I mean?
No, I don't think so. And he came up, and so he and the other clarinetist started dueling, and it was just so much fun because he would play, and the other clarinetist would play, and they went back and forth. It was just great. It appeared very spontaneous.
And we went, one of us, it's been 25 years ago, a bunch of us went elk hunting up on the Grand Long River out of Troy, Oregon, which is right on the Oregon-Washington, Idaho border. And we packed down this river to go hunting, and it wasn't a good place to go hunting. And they had a packer that came down every night and or every day in case we had something to haul back, which we didn't, mainly to drink our whiskey. And he said, it was a friend of mine, there was about 8 of us, and I knew what we were had. He said, guys, it's too bad you're not going to be in Troy, which is a town of about 30 people, because he said John Fogerty and his band are going to be putting on their deal. And John Fogerty and the Creedence Clearwater Band owned the other half of this place that we're playing on. So we jumped on pack mules and rode out of there. And doing banjo was actually not played with 2 banjos. It was played with a banjo and a 12-string guitar. And the waitress at the Troy Cafe had a banjo, and she did dueling banjos with John Fogerty in the Grange Hall. And you couldn't stand still. I mean, the place was just vibrating. I think it's probably the worst hangover I've ever had in my entire life, but it was absolutely spectacular. He played until like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It was just, you know.
I was just going to ask, do any of you want tribute?
I don't know what I said.
This will be a way to focus our resources on
Yeah,
the most important for
yeah.
natural
Yeah,
technology.
yeah. And if you need to clean it up, you can, because I don't remember exactly what I said.
It was a joint effort. We had
Staff put
Bruce
words in your
Springsteen.
mouth all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Bruce Springsteen was there Sunday night. Tom Petty was there Saturday afternoon. And the Beach Boys were there on Friday.
Is somebody leaving me out?
Wow, at the jazz festival?
Yeah, at the jazz. Well, it's a lot of things. They have
They're living
blues,
proof
and
that
they
some of
have-
that stuff will hurt you out there.
Yeah, name of the weekest of the 3. But it was very exciting, and a lot of old, there are a lot of old, sounds. Ramsey Lewis, who was really good, but he's probably in his 70s or something. He was, I mean, the energy he put into the keyboard, and it was just great.
Casey went to a Rice Outlook conference one year when I couldn't go in New Orleans, and they had dinner at whatever Paul Prudhomme, but they got to sit at his table, which is right next to where they're preparing everything. Music, girls, the world aside, he was fascinated, but his kitchen was all the kitchen they got. He just got it back.
It's still there, because we looked at it, it was a little pricey, so, but we ended up going, but I did like, Palmport Jazz was good, and at that one, there were fellows, he had the, small band that worked for years, and he was playing piano, and there was another guy. When we went to these clubs, we could always get a seat, and we found a seat everywhere else. But when you go to the two, or Springsteen, I mean, it was just crazy. Bruce was there. He was there on Sunday. Not really. I mean, you can't really see him. It was like if you can see into Chavez's car, you could see him. And they had big screens, so you could see things on the screen. But even then, it was just really thousands of Tom Petty was there on Saturday. Oh, Tom Petty? Yeah, we did. But he had one like this on Saturday. And then the Beach Boys were there on Friday. And they were kind of well, it's jazz and heritage, and so it's jazz, blues, gospel tunes, and always is rock, and then all different kinds of jazz and there's pop stuff. That's where a lot of the Brits who come over to sing their trio. Anyway, it was great. We can't go. We are going to go next year, but even though the year after. I mean, as long as New Orleans is still there, I feel like we kind of have to go.
They send the Beach Boys as an example of the people that doesn't pay to stay out too late.
Oh, yeah, Brian. He just played the piano, but he wasn't singing it. He was kind of sad.
They put enough people in harmony behind him, they can't tell they can't sing. He's turning the microphones off and they go through the motions.
The gospel stuff is, they started at 11. It goes from 11 to 7. And they have simultaneous videos about 10 or 12 all the time. Busy 2, pop 1, silent traditional jazz, 1 small big, huge jazz.
Legally, do I need to go through the evacuation procedures again?
But you do it so well, Charlie.
I'll take my admonishment like a man if I have to.
But he,
Did you miss the evacuation drill?
Huh?
he missed
No, I was on that.
You missed the evacuation drill.
I've been through one.
I
When
did
the
not.
girls down in the cafeteria caught a piece of toast on fire.
No, now I know where it is. I was here.
Did you go to the
I
right
went.
place?
I went to the right place. August did. He went to the right place. I went. He was there. So now, we should follow Tom. He knows where to go. That can be part of your next. Maybe we should.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we resume here? I didn't do a very good job of watching the clock. I was hearing about the Jazz Festival. Can we go? We ready? I have received permission from Mr. Howard to skip the emergency evacuation information. So if any of you were not here for that in the previous portion, if you'd see Mr. Howard, he actually knows where J. Neely Park is. But we are going to have a public hearing. I will call it to order. My name is Charlie Hoppen. I'm the chair of the State Water Resources Control Board, and I will be the hearing officer for this public hearing. Also present are my fellow board members, Vice Chair Francis Spivey Weber and Member Tam Doduk. The purpose of this hearing is to receive comments and proposed amendments to the California Ocean Plan and the associated staff report. The Water Board will not take final action on amendments to this ocean policy or ocean plan today. From a procedural standpoint, this hearing is being held in accordance with the revised notice of public hearing dated February 28, 2012, to receive input on the proposed amendments. The deadline for submittal of written comments was noon, April 18, 2012. If you intend to speak on this issue, please fill out a blue speaker's card and give it to Ms. Townsend in the front of the room. If you're not sure you wish to speak, please mark as if necessary. If you've already submitted written comments to the board, please briefly summarize your comments when it's your turn to speak if you feel a need to. Time limits may be imposed on oral comments if necessary to allow all participants the opportunity to be heard. I'm not going to be very strict on the time limits, but that doesn't mean, Ms. Larson, that we need to hear an hour and a half worth of important stuff. Maybe so. I will call the speakers in the order I've received the cards. When you come to the podium, please identify yourself and whom it is you're representing, if it's someone other than yourself. First, we will have a staff presentation followed by your comments. We have Dominic and Dominique today. I have permission to that because I can't pronounce her name correctly quickly enough. So. And Miss Woods, of course, and our brainiac from Berkeley. I was impressed with all of it. That wasn't a rigged deal yesterday where you were asking those questions and she was just giving you the answers like that?
She knows the answers.
I was dazzled. I'll just tell you what. Good job.
Good morning, Chair Hoppen and members of the board. My name is Dominic Gregorio. I manage the Watershed, Ocean, and Wetlands section of the Division of Water Quality. And with me today, I have Marley Wood from our Office of Chief Counsel. I have Maria de la Paz Carpio Besso, who is the new Ocean Unit Chief, and we have Johanna Weston, who is our Sea Grant Fellow that is assigned to the State Water Board for a year. And Mariella and I have asked Ms. Weston to give the presentation today, so I'm going to turn it over to Johanna.
Thank you, Dominic and board members. I'm here to present information on the proposed amendments to the Ocean Plan on state water quality protection areas to protect marine protected areas. I'd like to start with an outline of the topics that will be covered in this presentation, a summary, recent public process, a description of the Ocean Plan, Marine Managed Areas Improvement Act, Marine Protected Areas, and State Water Quality Protection Areas, rationale, description, and general response to major comments to the proposed amendment. This amendment is based on the implementation of Resolution 2010-57 and the Triennial Review Work Plan for 2011 to 2013. The objective of this amendment is to establish keyword framework for state water quality protection areas upon designated marine protected areas. It's important to note that one, the amendment does not alter prohibitions for areas of special biological significance, and two, this amendment does not designate new state water quality protection areas. It only provides a framework. For this amendment, a public scoping meeting was held on July 8, 2011. During this year, a staff report and draft SED was released on January 6th. A revised staff report and draft SED was released on February 23rd, which reflected the newly designated South Coast MPAs. We sent out the notice for this public hearing on February 28th, and there was a written comment deadline on April 18th, and we received a total of 24 comments. This is an amendment to the California Ocean Plan. The Water Code provides basis for the Ocean Plan through the requirement of formulation and adoption of water quality control plans for ocean waters. This area includes coastal waters extending to 3 nautical miles offshore, This excludes enclosed bays and estuaries, such as Newport Bay, Bolsa Chica, and Morro Bay. Sorry. The ocean plan establishes narrative and numeric water quality objectives. To achieve these water quality objectives, there is a program of implementation for the regulation of waste and discharge into coastal waters. The ocean plan applies to both point and non-point sources. The amendment also stems from the Marine Managed Areas Improvement Act, passed in 2000, which is also found in the Public Resource Code. The objective of this act is to establish consistency among state agencies who regulate marine managed areas. This act also defined marine managed areas as marine and estuarine areas along the coast intended to protect and manage a variety of resources and their uses. Also, the act organized marine managed areas into 6 categories. 4 will be addressed here today: state marine reserves, state marine parks, state marine conservation areas, state water quality protection areas. And then these 3 were further distinguished as marine protected areas. Click. Marine protected areas are intended to protect and conserve marine life and habitat through the regulation of take. The 3 MPAs have varying degrees of regulation, where state marine reserves are the strictest and marine conservation areas are the least strict. MPAs are regulated by Fish and Game and Department of Parks and Recreation. Thus far, 104 MPAs have been adopted, and there are more under consideration for the North Coast. The 4th category defined by Marine Managed Areas Improvement Act are the state water quality protection areas. Here's the definition found in the Public Resources Code, where the Port of Cologne Act gives justification to the State Water Board to establish areas to protect marine species and communities from an undesirable alteration in natural water quality. Currently, there are established areas of special biological significance, which are a subset of state water quality protection areas. 34 have been designated since the 1970s, and they cover approximately 32% of the state shoreline. 32 ASBSs overlap with 41 MPAs, and in the formation of MPAs, the Science Advisory Team acknowledged that water quality plays a role in the success of MPAs. Currently, the ocean plan does not have specific requirements for state water quality protection areas that are not ASBSs. Consequently, following a public hearing, staff was directed to develop an approach for establishing state water quality protection areas not intended to be ASBSs with 7 main tenets. First, state water quality protection areas will not be established over existing outfalls and zones of initial dilution. 2, no new or modified conditions to wastewater outfalls near state water quality protection areas. 3, treated wastewater discharges will follow ocean plan regulatory requirements. 4, existing outfalls will not have to be moved. 5, no new limitations will be imposed on wastewater outfalls based on state marine parks and state marine conservation area designation. 6, no new outfalls would be established in state water quality protection areas. And finally, 7, stormwater and non-point sources will be addressed to protect water quality in state water quality protection areas. The ocean water quality standards are reviewed every 3 years. Within the triennial review work plan for 2011 to 2013, this amendment, which is currently being discussed, was given very high priority. Based on direction from Resolution 2010-57 and the triennial review work plan from 2011 to 2013, a draft SED was prepared. The draft SED describes rationale and basis for the proposed amendments. 6 key issues were identified. a no-action alternative, protecting MPAs, state water quality protection area classification, designation, existing discharges, and new discharges. For the no-action alternative, this maintains the existing 2009 ocean plan with baseline provisions and areas of special biological significance provisions. Special protection of MPAs is only through ASBS designation. This isn't recommended since ASBS designation may not be necessary for state marine parks and state marine conservation areas, and also a lack of consistent statewide framework. Through this amendment, we're proposing a two-tiered system for state water quality protection areas, with ASBS's as the highest level of protection and a new category of state water quality protection areas of general protection. These general protection areas will provide an intermediate level of water quality protection between an ASBS and the baseline ocean plan. These areas will be designated to protect state marine parks and conservation areas, and these general protection areas will be designated through the same CEQA public process as ASBS designation. The framework for existing point sources in general protection areas includes no designation within permitted point source outfalls, no condition to move an existing point source outfall, as well as no new intakes. The framework for wet weather, stormwater, non-stormwater, and non-point sources includes that existing discharges are allowed but shall not exceed the instantaneous maximums found in Table 1 of the Ocean Plan, which is presently listed as Table B. Also, no discharge of trash, and dry weather flows will follow permitted conditions for prohibition and diversion to municipal sewer systems. The framework for new discharges includes no new point sources, no new seawater intakes, and also no increase in non-point sources. Finally, 303D listed water bodies draining into MPAs, ASBSs, and general protection areas will be given high priority for TMDL development and implementation. Now, to visually summarize the framework for state water quality protection areas of general protection, I will turn it over to Dominic to further describe this map.
Joanna, thank you. Dominic, I need to ask you a question on the no new seawater intakes. There is a proposal, a tentative proposal certainly, in Monterey Bay for deep wells that will have some influence, certainly from seawater directly through a sand filter. Hypothetically, would those intakes be precluded underneath this proposed policy the way it's written?
No, we would consider those a subsurface intake, and so we've sort of summarized this, but what we're really talking about is no new surface water intakes. So a slant well or a groundwater well, those would be not precluded by this.
I would think it would be good when we do the final language in this that we clarify that point.
Thank you, we will.
Okay, thank you.
So before you have a map, and I'm going to just briefly explain some of the important parts of this map. If you look on the west side of the map, you'll see an ASBS. That's the Laguna Point to Latigo Point ASBS number 24. That's in the vicinity of Malibu, and it straddles the LA and Ventura County line. You'll see two marine protected areas there. There's the Point Dune State Marine Conservation Area, and the Point Dume State Marine Reserve. And just to explain quickly the difference between a conservation area and a reserve, conservation areas allow minimum fish taking, and a reserve allows no take of fish. So in terms of management of fisheries resources, they have slightly different allowances, with the reserve allowing no take at all. That is co-located, obviously, with that ASBS, and therefore it already has water quality protection in that area. If you move down the coast, oops, wrong button. There we go. To the Palos Verdes area, you'll see there the Point Vicente SMCA and the Abalone Cove SMCA, and then immediately to the right of that, you'll see a red dot. All of those red dots on the map represent outfalls, major outfalls, wastewater outfalls, and that is the outfall for Los Angeles County, San, and so you can see that that's relatively close. That's around 3 or 4 miles. I'm just estimating. We know that the plume from the White Point outfall does make it into the SMCA, but by that point, the ocean plan limits are met, and so you can trace the plume there, but it is within the limits of the ocean plan. So when we say in the amendment that there would be no new requirements on an existing outfall, this would be an example of what we mean. And then do we have BOLSA on here too? Oops. There we go. So a point that Johanna made earlier, this circle now represents an enclosed bay, Bolsa Chica. There is a marine protected area in Bolsa Chica. The amendment would have no direct effect on that because we are not regulating what happens in enclosed bays under the ocean plan. So this is an area that is not under the direct regulation of the ocean plan. It is under the regulation of the basin plan and the SIP, State Implementation Policy, for the CTR, but not under the ocean plan. There is that one provision which we did include to prioritize TMDLs for areas that are 303D listed that drain to marine protected areas. But again, that's not a direct relationship, that's a recommendation. And so we did receive some comments. Like we said, there were 24 comment letters. We have just a few of them summarized here. These were some common comments that we received. We did not create a detailed response to comments yet. As you know, that's a major staff effort. We will be doing that following this hearing. But just for now, we thought we'd give 4 or so of some of the major comments that we got. One comment was that the framework for the state water quality protection areas was more stringent than the current regulations for ASBS, and that's not correct. The ASBS requirements are that there be no waste discharges, and of course for those ASBSs that we recently got adoption for our general exception on. Although we're allowing waste discharges, it's very, very, very strict. The state water quality protection areas that would be general protection are not nearly as strict as that. I keep hitting the wrong button. Okay. The state water quality protection areas for general protection can be designated in enclosed bays and estuaries, and I just showed you the map, and that is not what we just do not regulate enclosed bays under the ocean plan. The proposed amendment currently designates state water quality protection areas. That's not correct either. We're not designating any state water quality protection areas, no new ASBSs through this process. It's only to establish a framework for what would be required for in regard to marine protected areas and state water quality protection areas. And there was this portion of the amendment that did get quite a bit of comment. Non-stormwater flows are prohibited as required by the applicable permit. Where capacity and infrastructure exists, all dry weather flows shall be diverted to municipal sanitary sewer systems. And so the intention here is that if there is capacity to handle dry weather flows, then we would like to see that happen as long as it is effectively prohibited in the applicable permit. And of course, permits are written on water quality control plans. So in the future, it is possible that new permits could require this. But the important thing is that the capacity and the infrastructure would need to exist. So we wouldn't be requiring new infrastructure, new capacity. And so those were some of the comments that we received. There were many others. We just, these were very common comments, so we thought we'd focus on these. So next steps, we'll respond to all the comments. We'll make changes to the draft SCD and to the amendment as appropriate based on those comments. We'll release those draft changes, and we're hoping to bring this back to the board by the late summer. And we also have another amendment that is working parallel to this on model monitoring and vessel discharges. We had a public hearing for that already. We're in the process of planning a board workshop to release some edits to that amendment and to restart the public process with that. We would like to see these two amendments come back for adoption at approximately the same time so that we can move those through to the Office of Administrative Law at the same time. And I believe that's the end of the presentation.
Any questions at this point? Thank you, Dominic. Philip Friess, would you come forward, please?
Chair Hoppin, board members, my name is Phil Fries. I'm the Technical Services Department Head with the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. The sanitation districts operate an interconnected system of 7 wastewater treatment plants that serve 5 million people in the greater Los Angeles area. The terminal plant in that system is the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant in Carson, which discharges 300 million gallons per day of secondary effluent through a deep ocean outfall off South Palos Verdes. The outfall discharge began in 1937. The sanitation districts were active participants throughout the Marine Life Protection Act implementation process in the South Coast Study Region. From the beginning, the sanitation districts were concerned about inappropriate designation of marine protected areas in the vicinity of our outfall discharge, and that designation of marine protected areas could drive new regulations of our outfall. In the give and take of the highly politicized Marine Life Protection Act implementation process, 2 new marine protected areas were indeed designated over marginal soft bottom habitat impacted by ongoing sedimentation from an active landslide, underlain by Superfund DDT and PCB legacy contamination, and immediately down current of one of the largest wastewater outfalls in the western United States. The cost for the sanitation districts to meet new water quality requirements more stringent than Ocean Plan Table B objectives or to relocate our discharge or reduce the volume of our discharge has been estimated to be in the range of $580 million to $2.8 billion. As the Marine Life Protection Act was not intended to drive new regulation of existing wastewater outfalls, the Water Board recognized our concern and adopted Resolution 2010-57 to provide direction to staff regarding language for ocean plan amendments pertaining to marine protected areas and state water quality protected areas in the vicinity of existing wastewater outfalls. The sanitation districts thank the board for adopting the resolution and including an expedited 18-month time frame for implementation of the ocean plan amendment. 3 key provisions in the resolution in essence stated that MPAs other than state marine reserves in the vicinity of existing wastewater outfalls wouldn't drive new regulations of the outfalls, that general protection state water quality protected areas in the vicinity of existing wastewater outfalls wouldn't drive new regulations of the outfalls, and that regulation of discharges from wastewater outfalls would continue to be derived from the California Ocean Plan. The first provision from the resolution is in the draft amendments. The second and third provisions are not. The sanitation districts respectfully request that the board include paragraphs 3B and 3C from Resolution 2010-57